Afternoon, BamaCentral. This is the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon. And we are live today at SEC Media Days in Birmingham. Not football, basketball. I know you're all excited about Alabama, Tennessee on Saturday, but we're getting warmed up for basketball. We're 19 days away from the Crimson Tide tipping off November 6th in Coleman Coliseum. And I'm with BamaCentral's basketball expert, my man Byler. Blake, you pumped to be here?
Absolutely. It's always a great time being here.
Blake, what are you most looking forward to? I mean, you got Kentucky rolling in, Tennessee just finished up, you had Ole Miss in South Carolina this morning. Obviously, Alabama is going to be the star. We don't care about anybody else, really. Come on now. But what are you most excited about seeing all the basketball teams converging on Birmingham?
I mean, it's just always exciting to kind of feel like the season's here, that the season's approaching. You know, it's really good to see all of the head coaches and some of the stars of the SEC on the same place. And kind of the way the schedule goes, you've got a couple really good coaches back-to-back. I know Nate Oates, Eric Musselman, and Buzz Williams all go back-to-back on the podium in there. So it's just going to be really good to hear from them and kind of get excited for the season.
Will they have to update the seating height for Eric Musselman? Get a little boost for him? No, I'm just kidding. Eric Musselman, great coach, and will be excellent competition with Arkansas this coming up year, murdering the transfer portal. But Alabama, for that perspective, Nate Oates is going to be coming and bringing Aaron Estrada, somebody we haven't seen on the floor in an Alabama uniform yet. What are we going to expect? I mean, obviously he'd bring in Mark Sears as well, and somebody who played very, very well. But what do you see and expect out of this basketball team?
Well, I mean, there are a lot of unknowns whenever you look at Alabama this season. And at the very beginning, you only have three guys that are coming back from last season. You have Mark Sears, Nick Pringle, and Rylan Griffin are the only returning players that played consistently a year ago. And so you have a lot of new faces. It's going to be really interesting to kind of see how these faces gel. 4 guys from the transfer portal, 5 freshmen. And so obviously there are questions when it comes to chemistry, things of that nature, but that kind of comes with seeing this team on the floor. They also have a brand new coaching staff, 3 new assistants. 3 assistants from last season went and got head coaching gigs. So just all of these new pieces have to fit together some way, and that's something that we're not really going to get to be able to really see here today, but we'll be able to see more of as the season begins.
The guys went on their traditional pre-camp, little boot camp 3 or 4 weeks ago. What do you think that does for a team that it's integrating so many new parts?
Well, I think that's huge. I think I've talked to a couple of the players and Nate Oates about it as well. It's huge in building that chemistry and kind of creating that bond from an early, from the beginning of the season. Whenever they go on that camp, they're there for I think 2 days, and they do a lot of team building, a lot of workout type things that kind of just bring the team together as a whole. And I think that's really huge for creating a bond that this team can carry for getting into the season as the season goes on.
Well, we're bringing in Aaron Estrada, and Mark Sears will be here, but one of the biggest names that did come from the transfer portal is Grant Nelson. Everybody wants to see Grant Nelson and the mustache and see what he's going to be. Can he replace or be a different aspect, replace the production lost by Brandon Miller and Noah Clowney?
Well, I think that's a lot of production to replace, obviously. 100%. Miller being number 2 pick in the draft, Clowney also being a first-round pick, but Nelson, he kind of brings a little bit of each of those players in the role that he's going to play. Brandon Miller was a really big guard, and I think they're going to use Grant Nelson in a way out on the perimeter, but he's also a very versatile player. And he's a guy who can play down low. He can be a screener. He can be a roller. He can kind of play in that dunker spot, kind of like how we used Noah Clowney last year. So he's a very versatile player, and I think that's really exciting for Nate Oates and for Alabama fans to see a player that they can use in so many different ways. And assistant coach Ryan Danone, who's kind of the analytics, the X's and O's guru, he's going to be able to kind of create mismatches with Grant Nelson, and I think it's really exciting to see how he's going to develop and how he's going to play.
Alabama is the defending SEC champion, but comes in, obviously, with all those new pieces that we've alluded to, is picked 5th this year. Is that disrespectful, or is the rest of the league, Tennessee, Texas A&M, are they bringing back a lot of great pieces that that Alabama fans should watch out for?
No, I don't think it's disrespectful because it is a new year and Alabama does have so many unknowns. Do I think that 5th is probably a little underrated? I would think so because I think the team has the potential to be really good. But if you look at what Tennessee's returning, you look at what Texas A&M's returning, they're returning a lot of production. Specifically, Texas A&M returning most of their starting 5 from a team that went 15-3 in the league a year ago, played Alabama in the SEC championship game. And so I don't think it's necessarily disrespectful for Alabama to be coming in as 5th in the conference. Maybe some people would think that considering the fact that they won both the regular season league title and the tournament last year. But with the teams that are coming back and bringing so much back that they are, I think it's a pretty fair preseason.
All right, so as we start wrapping this up and get ready to go into the main media room, what's something that the average, everybody's in football mode. Everybody's thinking about Alabama, Tennessee. What should everybody be looking out for, or something that maybe the pundits or us are not considering in this SEC basketball season?
Man, I don't know. I think obviously the SEC, a lot of people think about it as a football league, but over the past couple of years, it's become one of the strongest leagues in college basketball. And you also look at the AP Top 25, the preseason poll that came out just a couple of days ago. Alabama leads all conferences with 5 teams in the top 25. So I think this is going to be a very deep league, and a league that, I mean, you think about Alabama, Kentucky, Auburn, Arkansas, Tennessee, teams like that. But even further down the list, you've got Ole Miss has a new coach in Chris Beard, who's been to a national championship game. You have Missouri and Dennis Gates, who had a great year last year. Has been great on the recruiting trail. Georgia had a really good offseason in the transfer portal. So there are a lot of teams, even outside of the top 4 or 5 that people typically think of when they think of SEC basketball, that are all going to be contenders to be tournament teams this year.
All right, last question for me. It's off the wall. Everybody's been talking about Coleman Coliseum. When are we going to build a new arena? That aside, because that's no one knows. What are some of the best events or venues in the SEC? A lot of people go to games at Coleman Coliseum, but may not get to the other 14 university schools. What are some of the ones that you like to see, or some that you're excited about seeing this year?
I've never been to Rupp Arena, so I'm very excited to get there this year. But as far as arenas that are my favorite, I think Neville Arena in Auburn is fantastic, with the kind of compact nature and the way that they crowd everybody in there, and it gets super rowdy. Really good environment there. I also really like Thompson Bowling Arena up in Knoxville last year. That place is massive. I think they hold over 20,000. It feels like an NBA arena, but also the fans bring a lot of energy. So that was one of my favorite arenas last year for sure.
It's kind of interesting going to Neville Arena. They sit you in different spots for the media just because they're going to pack you in.
Yep.
I remember my first time there, and the fans were literally right on top of me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my gosh, this is so cool. Yes.
It was crazy.
I mean, you had some that might complain, but I loved it. I loved it.
It's
a
unique environment for sure. Really fun.
Absolutely. Blake, tell everybody where they can find you on social media. You're going to be providing all kinds of great coverage for Alabama basketball and more for BamaCentral.com.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at BlakeByler45, and that's where you can find all my coverage for Alabama basketball that's going to be going on this season.
Cannot wait for it. It's SEC Basketball Media Days right here in Birmingham for BamaCentral.com. This is part of the Joe Gaither Show. Joe Gaither back on the Joe Gaither Show with BamaCentral.com. You're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. We had a lot of fun here at SEC Media Days up in Birmingham 2023. I know, Matt, we're here with Matt Stahl, AL.com. A lot of people talking about football, Alabama and Tennessee this weekend, but basketball is getting started soon. So what was your impressions through the early portions of SEC Media Days? We've seen Nate Oates, we've seen Rick Barnes, we've seen Bruce Pearl, we've seen the who's who.
Yeah. Well, for me, Bruce Pearl sidestep talking about politics. A wise move on, in my opinion, on Bruce Pearl. Nate Oates seemed really, excited about his roster. There's been a lot of turnover this season. He talked a lot about how the pieces are starting to fit together there. He seemed really excited about Aaron Estrada. Overall, it's SEC Media Days. You eat the cookies, you sit in the refrigerated ballroom at the hotel, and you learn just a little bit about every team.
Well, you have a lot of experience across the country, going to Western Kentucky, but I believe you've worked in Missouri as well. So Dennis Gates was so impressive to me. And Dennis Gates, going into year number 2, he's bringing 4 of his players here today instead of the traditional 2. I think that they are a sneaky team to watch out for. Alabama picked 5th in the league. Coach Oates poking fun at all of us for picking him 5th this year. What's just kind of your lay of the land, the SEC, the strength of the basketball conference?
Yeah, I mean, it's I grew up in Tennessee, right? So you grew up, like Bruce Pearl kind of talked about, like seeing what the SEC was as a basketball conference, which was like Rupp Arena, or it was Kentucky playing at Rupp Arena, and then kind of everybody else. It's sort of reaching for them. I remember when they built Thompson Bowling Arena, like one of the jokes that they did was like put one more seat in it than they had at Rupp. So it was everybody chasing Kentucky, and it's just not like that anymore. It's a very, very good basketball conference, And you're right on Missouri. Like I think Des Gates, after covering on the beat last year, really is sort of an excellent coach. I think he's really, really good at finding pieces that all fit together. Because I think there were some guys on that roster last year who were like, I don't quite know why this guy's on the team.
Sure.
But then, some situation would arise and be like, oh, okay, that's it. He actually fits perfectly with what they're trying to do here. So yeah, I think Missouri, I want to say last year's going to be the least talented roster he's
I
going
agree.
to work with. So, it's very intriguing to see what that Missouri team can be this year.
They broke out the stool for Eric Musselman when he got behind the podium. Bruce Pearl mentioned Neville Arena being sold out, their little Cracker Jack box. Oh my gosh! Have you gotten on the? Have you heard already with the Alabama since you joined the Alabama beat about the angst around the arena for Alabama basketball?
Yeah, I've heard it. I've been inside of Coleman, and I see what the fuss is about. Could be a little there, especially you look around the league. Some of these buildings, people are renovating, people are building new buildings, people are figuring out what does a basketball arena need to be in the SEC, and that was something I actually talked about pretty heavily on the Mizzou beat last season. Was they built their arena in '99 or whatever, and it's just too big. A lot of these arenas are too big. You are better off with a 10,000 seat thing that you can fill every night with the seats right next to the floor than you are these palaces with luxury boxes where fans don't fill it, and maybe the ones that are there are passionate, but how passionate can you really be when the place is 50% empty?
Absolutely. We're only one more for you. What's going to be your biggest excitement piece or intriguing aspect of the Alabama basketball program? Being picked fifth, you brought in 3 new assistants. You hit the transfer portal pretty hard. You got a pretty decent recruiting class. What's going to be the biggest kind of storyline that you're going to be paying attention to 19 days away from tip-off?
To me, from today, it's Aaron Estrada. I think he looks like he could be just a really solid piece for this team. They've lost a lot offensively. Obviously, Brandon Miller being the big sort of loss there. But based on what Coach Oates said today about just the mentality he brings and sort of the talents he has, it's really interesting to me.
This is Matt Stahl with AL.com. Where can they read all your great work and check you out on social media?
AL.com for all the work, and Matt Stahl 97 on Twitter or X or whatever it's called when you're seeing this video.
That's Matt Stahl. I'm Joe Gaither. This is SEC Media Days, and we'll keep it rolling on the Joe Gaither Show with BamaCentral.com. We're back at SEC Media Days right here on BamaCentral.com, and I'm with the greatest Alabama coach of all time, Coach Wimp Sanderson. I'm so happy to see him today. Coach, how are you?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Yes, sir. Coach, it's everybody's talking about Alabama football, obviously with Tennessee on deck, but we're about to start basketball, and that's what we're all here for. How excited are you for this year's SEC season?
Well, it should be another really good year for the SEC. They're going to have 5 or 6 teams, maybe 7 teams that are really going to be competitive, and I think the league is going to be really good from top to bottom. We've had a couple of changes, but certainly Tennessee, Kentucky, and Alabama, Auburn, those schools coming out. Arkansas is really good. They say A&M, I haven't seen them, but the ones I've mentioned, those 5 are really good. Ole Miss has a new coach, and he'll probably be good. So it should be a very interesting year.
Coach, they picked your former assistant, Rick Barnes, to win the league. Tell us about Rick Barnes. He's obviously been in Tennessee for a long time after Texas, and his team with Santiago Vescovi and Zakai Ziegler are going to be very talented. How good are they going to be?
Well, I don't know, but they should be very, very good. They got most of the kids back. I think they lost one or 2, but they do a good job recruiting and a good job coaching them. And it's hard to really this preseason deal. It's kind of hard to pick it who's going to be good, who's going to be bad, because you got to avoid injury and have a kind of basketball team that is going to be very competitive, but they should be very good.
Absolutely. Well, one of the big things, one of the big challenges for Alabama this year is integrating a lot of new players, but harder maybe for Nate Oates is having 3 new assistant coaches. You, longtime coach on the sidelines, but even before that, longtime assistant coach at Alabama. What's the challenge of working in a lot of new assistant coaches?
Well, the biggest thing is those new assistant coaches got to be recruiters first.
Yes, sir.
You got to get players. Players will win games, and that's the big thing. So, yes, sir. That would be the big thing I would do if somebody can really recruit.
Well, Alabama is bringing back just a few players. Rylan Griffin, and come on in, Buzz. It's okay, Coach. Come on in. It's all good.
Hi, Coach Sanderson. Buzz Williams reporting from AL.com.
It's all good.
Here's the conversation.
Coach Sanderson went to 6 Sweet 16s in a row out of 12 years as the head coach at Alabama.
This one now.
He now hosts his own show.
He is in the stands with me, and he says, "Wimp, I don't know whether to stay at New Orleans."
I said coach.
He said, "I don't know whether to
Coach
stay
Williams,
at New
Joe
Orleans
Gibbs.
or go to Marquette." He said, "What would you do?" I said, They got me going to Marquette. He said, "You think that's what?" I said, "Yeah, go." He did.
Coach, what are you doing?
I was hitting golf balls, and I found out y'all were having things, so I thought I'd go out here.
How far do you live from here?
Oh, about 10 miles. 10 miles.
That's perfect.
Yeah, well, I forgot all about y'all having it today. I got my radio show. I got to get you back on with basketball stuff.
When does your show start?
7 to 9 every morning.
It's 7 to 9 every morning? And do you go to the...
Do it at home. And I have.
Are you doing it with your son still?
Yeah. And then I have 2 other shows on a big show at 94.5, Jocks. So I have 3 shows going.
On 3 different stations, you're saying?
No, on 2 different stations.
He shows up on Jocks on Thursdays, right,
Yeah,
Coach?
I'm on Jocks on Thursday and Friday, and my show every day, except Saturday and Sunday.
And do you only talk about basketball on your show?
No,
You
we
talk
talk
about
everything. He turned off with just basketball.
But he's a pro. He can talk every sport.
Yeah, I got.
They don't pick his
I
brain
got
on
a lot-
basketball
I
there,
had,
no.
I had Gene Stallings home today.
From Paris, Texas?
Gene's in bad shape. Not bad shape, just gotten old like me. And he doesn't hear well. And Beebs, I call him Beebs. He's Gene. We've been friends.
Long time.
Well, we went to coach. I went to Alabama in 1960. He came in 1960 at all. So I'm 86 years old.
And where does he live now?
Paris, Texas.
That's
On the
about,
ranch,
that's,
right,
about,
Coach?
that's about 40 minutes from the little country town where I grew up.
Yeah, he used to farm a lot. He's not farming anymore. He's got 3 dogs. He had the Down syndrome child. And,
Yep.
he was great, John Martin. He used to let John Martin like to get up and mock me on the sidelines. He was great at it.
He was.
Beebs would say, "John Martin, mock Wimp on the sideline." He'd get up there, and he'd throw his hands up, and hit his head and all that kind of stuff.
That is so good.
Yeah.
Coach, let's take a picture
Yeah.
with my guy right here. I'm
Yeah,
gonna
no,
scoot you
please,
out.
absolutely,
Thank you.
no.
Awesome. Ready? 1, 2, 3. One more really quick. Hold on 1 second. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Great.
Perfect. Thank you, Coach. Good to see you.
Coach Williams?
Yes, sir. Yeah, nice to meet you.
Absolutely, nice to meet you. What a treat, Coach Buzz Williams. They've got Wade Taylor, his preseason SEC Player of the Year.
Yeah, that's great.
He's bringing back, I think, all 5 starters this year.
Yeah.
One more question for you, Coach, and just on Alabama. You've seen great success with head coach Nato. It's obviously he's dealt with a little bit of what you've dealt with, 2 Sweet 16s, and just kind of obviously had some bad luck in the draw. Just how hard is it to advance in the tournament?
Well, it's more difficult than the fans realize.
Absolutely.
The 2 teams that you play, if you don't get he got a good draw this past year, and I got a number 2 one time. He had a 1 this year, but the 2 teams that you play, unless you get when you get 9 and 10 draws, it's very difficult. And we got there, but couldn't get past it, and we'll just see what happens at Alabama in the future.
We'll see what happens, and Coach Wimp Sanderson will be talking about it on his radio program, Inside the Locker Room, 7 to 9 on Tide 100.9, and you can hear him on Jocks 94.5 on Thursdays and Fridays as well. Coach Sanderson, it's great to see you. I
Thank
love
you.
so
Appreciate
much.
it. Thank
Yes,
you
sir.
very
Yes,
much.
sir. That's Coach Wimp Sanderson on the Joe Gaither Show right here on BamaCentral with a surprise appearance by Buzz Williams, Texas A&M head coach. Whew, we're having a lot of fun right here at BamaCentral at SEC Media Days right here in Birmingham. For BamaCentral.com, we're back on the Joe Gaither Show right here on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, right here at SEC Media Days, and I'm with our other BamaCentral member, Mathey Gibson. We're going to be talking to Nate Oates here in just a little bit. You pumped up? And I know it's a big week for Alabama football, SEC, Alabama, and Tennessee, 3rd Saturday in October, but it's time to start talking about basketball. Are you excited?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is the best time of year for Alabama basketball fans. I mean, with SEC Media Days coming up, we're going to be able to talk to Oates, we're going to talk to Aaron Estrada, we're going to be able to talk to, who's other player?
Mark Sears.
Mark Sears.
Alabama
Mark Sears.
native.
So, again, it's going to be a great day. Going to have a lot of good content for you guys, and we're excited.
Absolutely. So we talked about Grant Nelson with Blake Byler earlier. So why don't you tell us about newcomer Aaron Estrada?
Yeah, Aaron Estrada, Hofstra transfer. Really dynamic, has a great stroke from three-point land. Started off at St. Peter's, ended up transferring to Oregon, and from Oregon went to Hofstra. 2-time player of the year in that conference. And look, Estrada's going to be a guy that's going to play the 1 and the 2. Great player, really quick, got a great handle. And again, he's got veteran leadership. This is a 6-year transfer now, and or 5th-year transfer. And look, Estrada's just one of those guys that Alabama targeted in the offseason, and he's someone that I think will again, just be a catalyst for this Alabama offense all year.
You hit one note as a veteran transfer. Well, that's one thing that NATO's really prioritized this past year. Alabama had a very young team last year with obviously Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney, and Rylan Griffin. But the team's gotten a lot older. Obviously, it's got a lot of new parts. What do you think that adds to NATO's squad, the veteran experience, especially coming off losing to San Diego State last year?
Yeah, well, I mean, you mentioned San Diego State. San Diego State was one of our veteran teams last year, so was UConn. And I think for Alabama in particular, having guys like Grant Nelson, who they got from North Dakota State, or Latrell Wrightsell from Cal State Fullerton, those are two guys that Alabama thinks very highly of, and they're a very experienced team now. You have Mark Sears. Mark Sears is a junior, senior, and look, Alabama's going to be deep. They're experienced, and to win in March, you've got to have like the right balance between freshman talent and just veteran leadership and talent that's been around and knows how to win. And Alabama's had a roster now that knows how to win and has been there.
Well, you mentioned freshman talent. One of the freshmen that I think you're very excited about is Chris Parker. Chris Parker, freshman out of Florida, long body guy, athletic guy. What is he going to be adding to this year's roster?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a Herb Jones type. He's 6'9".
Ooh, watch out with those words.
Yeah, eventually, coming out of high school, was listed at 6'6", 6'7", but he's grown 2 inches since coming to Alabama. He's 6'9" now, every bit of it. Long arms. Defensively has been standing out in practice all year long. I mean, it's someone that for Alabama, he's going to play an instant impact on the perimeter as a 3-and-D guy. And look, Parker is someone with his defense is going to be able to contribute right away for Alabama. And I know inside the program, Alabama's been really excited about Parker.
Well, one thing about Alabama, you also the new players on the court. You've got 3 new coaches: Austin Pannone, Ryan Clanch, and
Preston Murphy.
Preston Murphy. Thank you very much. So 3 new assistants for Alabama to get to know. One, what's it mean for Alabama to have all 3 assistants go get head coaching jobs, and what did NATO to get in his 3 replacements?
Well, I think it speaks to the program that Alabama has built. I mean, obviously with Petway going to Kennesaw State, Austin going to Arkansas State, and Charlie Henry going to Georgia State or Georgia Southern. I think for Alabama and NATO, it just proves that he's developed a system that coaches and administrators for other programs want to have in their program. And for the new additions, Ryan Pannone, NBA background, is smart as a coach that you're going to find. In practices, he's made his presence very apparent. And if you talk to Blake Byler, Blake would tell you that Pannone stood out like all practice long for him. Clanch is kind of an energy guy. Came from Nicholas State.
Taking his shirt off in the locker room.
Yeah, he was a head coach and took a step down to become an assistant at Alabama. I think that proves to you again the kind of program that Alabama has built here, where a guy like Clanch can come in and want to step down from a head coaching position to go up for a high major conference to Alabama as an assistant coach just to play for NATO. And then Preston Murphy is a big recruiter, coming off a show cause from Creighton, but one of his first opportunities since coming off of that, and he's going to be the shark for Alabama, which kind of we saw that with Brian Hodgson last year and the years that he's been here. But Murphy is kind of that guy now. He's going to be your ace recruiter.
All right, so Alabama has many non-conference games coming up that are very exciting. Obviously playing Purdue in Canada. They're going out to Arizona. You're going to Creighton. You covering the team. What are you most excited to see in the non-conference? Which game are you most excited to see in the non-conference before Alabama gets into SEC play?
Arizona. I think Jaden Bradley having a chance to face his old team and Alabama going to Arizona, that'll be his first opportunity to face Alabama and NATO. I think that's a big game that I think Alabama and Arizona both circle on their calendars, and I think for Alabama fans, getting to see Jaden Bradley and maybe the revenge game for him is something that's an intriguing storyline there.
All right, last question for me, Mathey, and thanks for your time here at SEC Media Days. What is a storyline outside of the Alabama program that you're paying attention to, or you think that other Alabama fans or other real basketball fans should be aware of going into this SEC season?
Well, I think it's Texas A&M. I mean, Texas A&M came back last year, played in the SEC championship game against Alabama. I think A&M has a chance to, again, win the SEC this year in the regular season and in the tournament. They've got a deep roster. Wade Taylor's back. Texas A&M's got a good squad, and I think that's a team that is not necessarily under the radar because they have been picked pretty highly, but I think A&M is a team that could win both the SEC and the SEC regular season, just like Alabama did last year. Well, it's a lot of fun here in Birmingham. Nate Oates and company are about to take this stand. You can follow Mathey Gibson for BamaCentral.com. Where else can they follow you, sir? Blue Collar Unplugged. We have a podcast. Blake Byler, Jacob Pickle, myself. Blue Collar Unplugged. Follow us on Twitter. We tell them every day, subscribe to Blue Collar Unplugged. So now they put two faces to the names that we say every day on the Joe Gaither Show. We'll have more right here in Birmingham at SEC Media Days for the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral.com.
I'm Joe Gaither with BamaCentral.com, and this is SEC Media Days in Birmingham for basketball. We're 19 days away from tip-off for Alabama basketball, and I'm here with Commissioner Greg Sankey. Commissioner, it's been a beautiful day with all the basketball coaches. What does it mean to you, right in the middle of football season, that we're celebrating basketball with it right around the corner?
Well, it's an indication that the season's about to start, and it gives us a chance to take a fresh look at what's ahead. It's interesting. Our teams are preparing and have gone through some exhibition scrimmage games to just kind of see what the roster looks like in a time of a lot of movement that is new to us still. It gives us a chance to communicate about who we're going to be in the season ahead.
Absolutely. We got a lot of great coaches in the league over the last 10 years. That really, SEC basketball has taken massive steps forward under your direction. What does it mean that basketball in the conference has become such a strong sport, just like football and just like baseball?
We have a great history. And we had this period from about 2004 or 5 to about 2014, where 15 season, where we didn't have the kind of postseason access on a year-to-year basis that we were accustomed to. And the good news is the last, 4 or 5 years, we've had at least 6 teams. Last year we had 8 of our teams in the NCAA tournament, which tied a record high. We still want to see our teams succeed at that highest level, that national championships level. And I think we've had the quality of competition, and I think we will this year. We just need the stars to align for us in March.
Well, we're here at SEC Media Days in Birmingham, and it's a beautiful event right here at the Grand Bohemian Hotel. We saw, from an Alabama perspective, Nate Oates, Mark Sears, and Aaron Estrada. Aaron Estrada, a transferee. The transfer portal has become huge for basketball. I mean, obviously, it's been huge on every sport. But as college sports move along, what do you think the future of the transfer portal is really as it relates to basketball or all sports?
Well, I really think the description of transfer portal is the common nomenclature, and that's just really a label for a computer opportunity for somebody to indicate they're interested in transfer. What's happened is the rules have changed, required a year of residence, so a year of sitting out. And we're moving towards a time when kind of the COVID eligibility extensions will start to rotate out. That will happen after next year. And we'll get back more towards that 4-year experience within 5 years. There's also a one-time transfer policy that's been instituted across the board by the NCAA. So I think there's still going to be transfer realities. I don't think if we look 3-4 years down the road, we'll have quite the level of frequency we have right now. But we're going to have to pay attention. We're going to have to pay attention to the academic impact. It's not just about the game of basketball. It's about trying to move young people towards graduation, and that's part of our responsibility as leaders to pay attention to that outcome as well.
Last one for me, Commissioner, and thank you for your time. We're obviously here in Birmingham, but the season will culminate, the SEC season will culminate in Nashville. The tournament is beautiful, and it's a great event in Nashville. Just talk about the impact of the tournament in Nashville, and maybe will we see it move around as conference expansion continues?
No, we're going to be in Nashville for the next 9 years for certain. It's a central location. We have a great relationship with the Nashville Predators. We've got the entertainment that's just naturally there in Nashville, the development that's happened around the arena with hotels, restaurants provides just a great experience for fans. And it's one of these locations uniquely where if there's an upset or if a team advances farther than maybe their fans had thought, they can hop in the car, hop on a quick flight and make it there. So we've got a long-term view of our opportunities in Nashville.
We saw that last year with Alabama really taking over Bridgestone Arena towards the last round or two, and maybe we'll see it again. Thanks so much for your time, and I really, really appreciate it. I can't wait for the basketball season to really get rolling.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for your time.
Absolutely.
Back on the Joe Gaither Show at BamaCentral.com, right here at SEC Media Days with Alabama superstar Richard Hendrix. Played at Alabama from 2005 to 2008 and now works at the SEC Network and with Crimson Tide Sports Network. We've got 19 days until Alabama tips off against Morehead State. Richard Hendrix, we heard from Nate Oates, we heard from Aaron Estrada, and from Mark Sears. What was your biggest takeaway from the trio here at Alabama Media Days or SEC Media Days?
Well, I think they're definitely very confident and excited about the upcoming season. They know they'll have a lot of
turnover in the roster, but of course that's nothing new in this new era of basketball. But I think some really good players, and I think everyone has high expectations of what Alabama can do.
Absolutely. There's been a lot of excitement about Grant Nelson, how he can play. Coach Oates has said 1 through 4, 1 through 5. What have you seen out of him from practice so far, and what kind of player can he be coming from a small major, a small program up into the SEC?
Well, you know, even if you transfer from a mid-major college, when you get the experience, you won't be intimidated when you join to a bigger league. It's the physicality that you might have to kind of catch up to, but he has a physique at 6'10", 6'11", that he can mix up with people. He has the versatility to do things on the outside and on the inside. So, you know, he's going to fit into the program very well, and with the coaching staff that Nate Oates has put together at Alabama, they'll figure out a best way to find his skill set and to utilize that for the team.
You talk about the coaching staff. Alabama is bringing in 3 new assistant coaches. What do you know about the new coaches, and how do you think they're going to fit in? What kind of a challenge is that going to be for Coach Oates working with 3 assistants that he doesn't have a rapport with quite yet?
Well, he's had some time to grow with the staff, and I can tell you, you know, I've had some opportunity to call some games for the Birmingham squadron when Ryan Pannone was the head coach, and you know, he's known in the basketball community as an X and O guru. He's constantly learning the game, and he's constantly teaching the game. So he's going to bring his expertise to the side and hope to help the team to learn the new system in which they can teach, and also for him to learn Coach Oates' system to teach things to the team for them to get things back on track and try to make another run at the SEC championship.
Absolutely. You talk about Coach Oates' system. You would have thrived in Coach Oates' system. What do you think about his system now going into 5th year here at Tuscaloosa?
Well, I like to think that I would.
Oh, absolutely. You would, yeah, for sure.
I think I would thrive. I mean, you know, I think, you know, the game has changed so much just in the short period of time in which I was just there on campus 15 years ago. You know, you're talking about at a time period where there were 2 bigs on the court, and even the small forward had legitimate size. You walked the ball up the court, you kind of ground and pound it, you're playing the games in the upper 50s, lower 60s. But it was a different style, albeit an effective style, sure, if you could definitely still have players to play that way. But the style of basketball now that teams are playing is much more appealing to players coming out of high school and coming out of the junior college or even the transfer portal, where they can get up and down, they can get more threes up, because the analytics games seem to show that it can definitely mean a lot. So with the system, it's definitely something that I know that if I was playing in that, I would love to be able to do that too, to be able to show my skill set of stretching the court as well as taking advantage of the interior low post play. But it's a player system. But I tell you one thing, if you really watch this Alabama team, it's not just a matter of what they do on the offensive end. They really strap down defensively. And if you watch them, that is where the real heart and soul of the team is. They lock down defensively, but they get the freedom on the offensive end.
Coach was able to get the guys to play really good defense last year, even with a lot of newcomers and a great freshman recruiting class. Now he's hit the transfer portal. There's still a lot of turnover on the squad side, on the player side. How important or how difficult will it be to get them to buy in on the defensive side of the floor?
Well, I think it's probably not as difficult when you have a style that they play offensively. You have so much depth on the team. You get the team to play in a certain synergistic way in which they do, and give them that maximum effort. I think the thing for them will be adjusting to the new personnel that they have. What type of defensive identity do you have when you no longer have a 7-footer like Charles Bediako being the anchor in the back? When you don't have that, that changes what the responsibility is for the perimeter players. And they're going to have to figure out their roles and how they're going to switch, how they're going to rotate, and how they're going to stop dribble penetration on the one-up without having a 7-footer behind you. Now, you do have Nick Pringle, who's going to be filling in a role, as well as Grant Nelson, who also has size. But as I said, replacing a shot blocker of that caliber, and also having a big guard with Brandon Miller and Noah Clowney, that type of length, definitely changes things. But not to say that Alabama doesn't have length this year. They have a lot of it, but it'll be a little bit different.
Alabama's predicted 5th in the SEC by us media folks. Coach Oates poking a little fun at us about that today. What have you noticed, or how happy are you with the progression of the SEC? Really, in the last 10 years, you bring in Chris Beard, you've got Bruce Pearl, you've got great coaches all across the league. John Calipari, Rick Barnes. The league has just really embraced, and the basketball has absolutely grown. So, what does it mean to you, as a basketball guy in Alabama, to see the league grow this way, just in this fashion?
Well, personally, I'd like to think that the league has always had really good coaches and always had really good players, but I do think that the exposure that the league now gets, mainly with a lot of the contracts with SEC Network and ESPN, where they get games that are broadcast all over the country, I think now you're getting to see what the talent can do. And when everyone gets a chance to see the talent, see what the talent can do, that's more opportunity for people that want to come to this conference to get that particular exposure, and also for the NBA and other professional teams to watch this particular conference to get more exposure to get to the next level. So it's not just a matter of that the coaches, which they are really, really good, but the coaches have always been good. But when you have more people with eyes on it, I think it overall raises the level of the league, and I think that it definitely is a very tough league now. I think you have high-quality name brand coaches on every single league, and it is a joy to watch, and it's fun to watch them compete.
Last one for me, and we're talking to Richard Hendrix, former Alabama basketball player. What is a non-Alabama storyline that you're going to be paying attention to in the SEC? Obviously, A&M was picked to win second in the league, and Tennessee was picked to win the league. Wade Taylor was picked as preseason player of the year. What's an outside of the Alabama circle storyline that you're going to really be paying attention to going into the season?
Well, I think the first storyline, I said you have to look at Chris Beard coming over to Ole Miss. I think that's something to consider. I think another storyline that you have to look at is Dennis Gates and what he has brewing at
He was so impressive to me.
You know, this is a guy who last season, when he came into the SEC, no one knew too much about him. He came into SEC media days and kind of laid low profile. Watched everyone and give their speeches and whatnot, and then the season started, and you see they win a lot of games in the conference to make to the NCAA tournament. I think with his leadership style, and him still not being with the media ranked high in the preseason, he has something about him and his program that seems to be able to get results. To me, that's something that I want to keep my eye on to see what they can do in year two. You see what they did in year one. I would only think that you could think that things can be better in year two. So I think that's a team that I would kind of keep my eye on. But multiple storylines. You can go to every single team in the league, but I think that's something to keep your eye on for sure.
Well, thank you so much for your time. This was Richard Hendrix. You can hear him on SEC Network, and you can hear him on Crimson Tide Sports Network, working with Roger Hoover. Roger's the man. We love him, and we really appreciate you hanging out with us for today.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks
sir.
for having me.
No problem. We'll be back with more from the SEC Media Days right here in Birmingham on the Joe Gaither Show at BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. We're back at the Joe Gaither Show right here at BamaCentral at SEC Media Days in Birmingham, and I'm with the legend coach Seth Greenberg. Right there, you can see him every single day on ESPN talking college basketball, and obviously coach on the sidelines at Virginia Tech for a long time. Coach, everybody in Alabama is talking about football with Alabama and Tennessee this weekend, but we're here getting ready for basketball season. It's only 29 days away. What are you most excited about for this SEC season?
The depth of the SEC is incredible. I mean, this is a league, look, it's great. It's a great football season. Obviously, Alabama, Tennessee's a big game. There's a big game every single week in football when it comes to the SEC. Just every single week there's going to be a great game in basketball in the SEC. So many good teams. You know, a while back, Mike Slive had a vision for SEC basketball, and that vision's become a reality. The depth of the conference across the board is incredible. They invested in coaches, they invested in facilities, they invested in infrastructure. I think the SEC Network has helped some. But this league is deep and talented and really well coached. And, I could see 8-9 teams from this conference making the NCAA tournament.
Absolutely. You talk about the great coaches. You've got Coach Oates, as we're going to hear from in just a little bit, but Eric Musselman, Bruce Pearl, Rick Barnes, John Calipari, Chris Beard coming into the league, and Buzz Williams. We just saw just how incredible over the last 10 years has it been to bring in such great coaches into the league, and it just makes everything so much more competitive.
Yeah, I think the league, is attracting great coaches because of the commitment. You got, world-class universities with incredible resources, and now they're investing them in basketball, and they're attracting great coaches, and especially with what's happened with realignment, these great leagues are getting bigger, which means more teams are going to probably get the NCAA tournament. There's more money, obviously, with the television contracts, with NIL and the transfer portal and realignment. It's really, I think the SEC has taken advantage of that as well as anyone. If you look at the past 4 years in terms of recruiting, the SEC has dominated recruiting when it used to be the ACC. If you eliminate Duke from the ACC, the SEC has been a dominant force in recruiting. So the depth of the league is real. And how old the league is this year. I think, Mike Bray used to say, get old and stay old. Well, this league is old. Mississippi State, 5 senior starters. And you go right through this conference. You look at, Vescovi at Tennessee and Josiah James at Tennessee. you go right through the conference. The conference has great depth, great athleticism, terrific coaches. It's going to be just each and every night. Games aren't going to be games; they're going to be events.
Oh, absolutely. And Alabama has used the transfer portal this past year. Obviously, last year Alabama recruited very well with Brandon Miller, Noah Clowney, and Ryland Griffin. You lost Clowney and Miller to the NBA draft, but you utilized the transfer portal, bringing in Grant Nelson and Aaron Estrada. Just how much easier does that make it things roster management for coaches, but also how much harder does it make for roster management trying to build your team year to year?
You got to find the right pieces. Grant Nelson is a multifaceted, skilled offensive player with size, fits the system that Nate wants to play. He's a point forward. He can put it on the floor. He can shoot it. He can make plays off the bounce. He can get to the rim. Aaron Estrada is a proven scorer. He may have started at Oregon. I think he obviously had a great career at Hofstra, but he's got good size, plays at his own pace, be a good complement to Mark Sears. I'm a big Ryland Griffin fan. I just think he has a chance to have a monster breakout year. He can defend. He's got positional size and athleticism. The big question will be up front. How much can they get out of Pringle? Nate's style of play, the pace that they play with, they got guys that fit what they're doing. I'm going to get a chance to see them actually in exhibition game against Wake Forest, and I think a week from Sunday. So I'm excited to see them there. But they are very, very good, as is Art. Older, more experienced, depth, physicality. Obviously, John coming back was, I think they'll be a better shooting team. So the league is just really good.
Just a couple questions left for us with Seth Greenberg. What's your opinion? Long time, great coaching pedigree. What's been your opinion of the NATO's coaching style, the 3-and-D, hard hat mentality, but we're only going to take 3-point shots, free throws, or right extra rim? Some people in Alabama circles want to see more mid-range shots. But as a coach, what's your opinion of the style and system that NATO's runs?
I think first of all, the hard hat mentality is the most important thing, because the hardest playing, toughest team finds a play to win. So if you're fiercely competitive, if you're not taking plays off, if you're competing every play, you're going to get extra possessions. You're going to get to the offensive glass. You're going to get deflections. You're going to get out in transition. That's number one. Number two is, especially the new block charge rule, it behooves you to get in the lane, because all those charges are now probably going to be blocks. So getting to the basket, getting the head touches, compressing the defense, now kicking it out and forcing closeouts where you can drive it a second time is going to be huge. And then, the whole idea of layups, free throws, and threes, you got to have guys who can make shots. If you have guys who can make shots and you put defense in rotation, it's a proven formula. Look, I got a lot of respect for Nate, how hard his guys play, how creative and innovative he is, and how he's recruiting to his system and creating a lot of excitement in Tuscaloosa.
Last thing for me, coaches. Coach Nato has brought in 3 new assistant coaches, and it's obviously you can see the guys go on to take head coaching jobs over the offseason. How difficult is it to integrate the 3 assistant coaches, and what does it say about Alabama that the 3 assistants all went and got head coaching jobs this offseason?
Well, it obviously says that what's going on at Alabama in terms of how they're coaching their team and how they're able to recruit the things that they're doing is obviously very advantageous for these young assistants. But the biggest thing, he's going to have to spend more time coaching his coaches. I think that's like a head coach. It's almost like in football. Coach Saban doesn't coach team, but he coaches his coaches. Well, NATO, it's because he has so many more staff members. He's got to coach his coaches. So those coaches have to understand terminology and the glossary and the drills they're going to be doing, how to teach, why to teach, what they're doing, and then the relationship building. In a short period of time, they've got to build those strong relationships with those players to explain coaches' intensity to the players. Also develop relationships so there's a trust, because you're going to win the games you're supposed to win, but to win the games you need to win, those players have to play for you, not just you, but your assistant coaches as well. So there's a lot of work to be done, but I think that they've got the infrastructure in place, and Alabama's one of those teams that's going to be competing for an SEC championship.
We'll have to watch it. We're excited about it. SEC basketball starting in 20 days, and we're in Birmingham with Coach Seth Greenberg. You can see him on ESPN for College Game Day all over the college basketball season. Coach Greenberg, we look forward to seeing you in Tuscaloosa this year. Thank you for your time. Great. I'm Joe Gaither right here at BamaCentral.com at SEC Media Days in Birmingham alongside Kevin Skarpinski of the Birmingham Lead. And Kevin, you have been writing your tail off all day long for SEC blog, covering all things SEC Media Days. What's been maybe some of the biggest takeaways? Obviously, we were here from an Alabama perspective with Nate Oates, Aaron Estrada, and Mark Sears. And, he poked fun at the media. He was saying that, y'all picked us fifth the years that we've won a title. But really, either Alabama or outside of the Alabama perspective, what have been some of your favorite or most interesting takeaways from today's media days?
Well, it's always interesting to hear from the players because, we hear from John Calipari and Rick Barnes and Bruce Pearl and these guys that have been in the league for so long and they've been so successful. And really, it's those guys that have lifted up basketball in the SEC over the last decade. It's just amazing how deep this league is, how good it is. And then you have newcomers like Dennis Gates at Missouri doing what they did last year, winning 25 games, winning an NCAA tournament game for the first time in a while for the Tigers. So but it's always interesting to me, though, to come to this event every year and hear from the players, to hear from veterans like Mark Sears from Alabama. Now he's going to have to step into more of a leadership role this season. And then Aaron Estrada, I'm excited about watching those guys play together.
Sure.
Because they seem very different. Obviously, Aaron's from New Jersey, Mark's from Muscle Shoals, probably seem like two different planets at times. But when you follow their past, their journeys to get to Tuscaloosa, they're very similar. They played at smaller schools. They weren't given those opportunities to play at a Power 5 school maybe earlier. Although Aaron, where didn't he play? He's been at four different schools now. But he really took off at Hofstra, where he was the two-time conference player of the year. And now for them, and then we know what Mark did at Ohio before he came back home to Tuscaloosa last year. And to see those guys play together, I have a feeling, look, Alabama's not supposed to be as good as the team that was number one in the country and won the SEC regular season and tournament and was the number one overall seed in the NCAA tournament without guys like Brandon Miller, who was the number 2 overall pick in the NBA draft. I got a funny feeling, though, they're not going to drop off much at all.
I think so as well, and maybe that just is my crimson-colored glasses. On that sort of topic, how difficult we're going to see it again with Grant Nelson. Auburn just dealt with it with Jonai Broome. Coming from a mid-major kind of type program into the SEC, you mentioned how competitive it is, and really the league is 8, 9, 10 really quality teams deep, and even 11 through 14 as well. So how difficult is it to go from that mid-major level into a Power 5 conference, and the Power 5 conference that is the SEC?
It usually takes an adjustment period, and that's why you'll see those guys struggle at times in November and December. But as they get into league play, as they get more comfortable, as they get in that environment with the crowds and the intensity and the passion that you see for SEC basketball around the league, then their true ability stands out. They get more comfortable with their teammates get more comfortable with them. They trust the coaches trust them. It really is a growing process. And we all would love to see teams be fully developed when they take the floor for their very first game.
19 days away.
That's rarely the case.
Right.
It's rarely the case. But what you want to see is your team get better as the year goes on. And that's one of the things that stood out to me that Mark Sears said about him wanting very much for Alabama to play its best basketball in March. Didn't really do that last year.
Oh, yeah, correct. One thing that Coach Oates said today, he was talking about Aaron Estrada. He said it's nice to have a point guard you don't have to prod to play to play hard every day. And the social media fires have taken off, and they're saying, he was good after JQ, a little shot out the door. Nate Oates has responded to that through Nick Kelly at the Tuscaloosa News, saying I wasn't taking a shot at Javon Quinterly. What's your make of that comment, and I guess how it's taken off on how social media goes?
Yeah, I don't think that was a subtle shot at Javon. I really just think it was a compliment for Aaron Estrada. And look, he's a veteran. He's been at different schools. He's been in different environments. He's been successful. He's been not just a very good player, but if you're a conference player of the year in Division I, as Nate Oates said from his past at Buffalo, if you're a player of the year in one of those mid-major leagues, you can play in the SEC.
Certainly.
And we've seen it. You mentioned Jonai Broome from Auburn and what he did last year. He was the team's leading scorer, its leading rebounder, its leading shot blocker.
Everything.
And that team had a 10-point lead on number 1 seed Houston in the second round of the NCAA tournament here in Birmingham. And it was interesting to hear Bruce Pearl say, but losing that game turned what could have been a great season into a good season. And when you've won the SEC as they did the year before, yeah, your expectations are higher than a second-round NCAA tournament exit. And when you've been to the Final Four, as Auburn did back in 2019, certainly your expectations are higher. But isn't it cool, Joe, though, that here in Alabama, the last 3 SEC championship teams in a regular season, Alabama in 21, Auburn in 22, Alabama in 23.
I think that's awesome, and really, that leads me into my next question: is how basketball has been a passion of yours for forever. Really, just what does it mean to you to see the league take these steps forward and the state take these steps forward? I mean, Alabama basketball. When I first came to school in 2008, it was 50 points with Avery Johnson and Anthony Grant, just back to back, and just ugly basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, he had some good players. I mean, I love Trevor Relaford, of course, and JaMychal Green has made himself into the NBA, but really just not so good. Nate Oates and Bruce Pearl together, whether the Alabama fans want to admit it or not, Bruce Pearl has been a huge part of that. Together, both programs have taken massive steps forward.
Absolutely. It reminds me of when I first broke into the business ages ago, back in the 80s, and you had Sonny Smith at Auburn, you had Wimp Sanderson at Alabama, and you had Gene Bartow at UAB. And the 3 of them competing for players and recruiting, it got really heated. And some of those battles between Wimp and Gene got pretty personal. But they lifted the sport, and they didn't accept being second fiddle to football. They wanted their programs to be among the best in the country, and they were. I mean, look how many times Wimp went to the Sweet 16. It still gnaws at him.
He said that today.
He couldn't get past. He will never let that go. But that tells you what kind of a competitor he was.
Certainly.
But you didn't wonder if Alabama was going to make the tournament when he was a coach. You just wondered what seed would they get and where would they travel to. And the same thing with Auburn and Sonny Smith. You know, they went to 5 straight NCAAs. Again, UAB with Gene Bartow back in, I think they went to 7 straight back at the time. So it was a great time for basketball. My first year covering Auburn as a beat writer, my first year writing at the Birmingham News, Auburn went to the Elite 8. They were tied with Louisville with 3 minutes left in the game to go to the Final Four. They fell short, and Louisville went on to win the national championship that year with never nervous Purvis Ellison as the MVP as a freshman. But it was a great introduction to the sport for me because, again, I grew up in Pennsylvania. Basketball, I always liked football, but basketball was my favorite sport. Basketball and baseball, really. And so to be here and to see it kind of come full circle, because we've seen down periods certainly at both programs, at every program in the state, but now it's not just Alabama, it's not just Auburn, it's not just UAB. Look what Sanford is. Sanford won the Southern Conference last year under Bucky McMillan. You know, there's good things. South Alabama's done good things. Troy's done good things. It's great to see. And then a guy like Chaney Johnson, who played at UAH in Huntsville, he transfers to Auburn, and I don't know if you. When Bruce Pearl said either this year or next year he's going to be one of the best players in the SEC, that's a pretty high compliment. You're setting the bar really high for Chaney, but that tells you what he thinks of him, even though he's only been on campus for a short period of time. But that, again, he did really good things with the Chargers, and again, that's a great program. Lenny Acuff, really set the tone there, and there's just such great basketball here. It's been kind of a hidden gem in many ways. It's been a secret. It's been overshadowed by football because of the accomplishments of both Alabama and Auburn, and no one would ever try to diminish what they've done in that sport. But let's give basketball its due. And like I said, here's a fun fact for you. Both Alabama and Auburn have won SEC championships in basketball more recently than in football.
Oh, yeah. So, my gosh.
Not trying to insult any Alabama football fans,
absolutely.
But that's just a fact.
And honestly, it just makes the whole school year go, and really the academic calendar just flow so nicely. You can go right into football, into high-level basketball, and you're seeing what the spring sports are doing. It's just a lot of fun for me. One or two more for us. Chris Beard's coming into the conference, and him as a symbol of coaches, the great coaches that are in the conference already, from Calipari to Coach Pearl. We just talked about Coach Oates and Rick Barnes, and really just lots of great coaches everywhere. How do you think Chris Beard, how quickly do you think that he can impact that Ole Miss program? And just a further comment on the quality of coaches that are in this league.
That's something else that stood out to me today. How often do you hear a coach compliment his predecessor the way Chris Beard complimented Kermit Davis? And I've known Kermit for a long time. I got to know him when he was an assistant to John Brady at LSU, and I've known John back to his days at Samford when he really got that program rolling back in the 90s. and they took a dip after Jimmy Tillett did some great things there, and now again they've come back with Bucky McMillan. But for Chris Beard to say that Kermit Davis left that program in excellent shape in so many ways. He left talented players, he left a good infrastructure. They obviously have built a new arena in recent years. So the fans get excited about basketball. It's a hard place to play. And so I was really taken aback by that. That told me something. That said something positive to me about Chris Beard. And look, we know what a good coach he is. We know what he did at Arkansas Little Rock, what he did at Texas Tech. Got to the national championship game at Texas Tech. And interestingly, that he would have played Auburn if they'd called the double dribble on Virginia in the semifinals. Don't mention it to Bruce Pearl anytime soon. But so he's very good at what he does. One of the coaches, I can't remember who it was, talked about how difficult it is to prepare for his team, to scheme for his team because of the things that they run and how well they do what they do. So again, it's another example. And another interesting twist from the state. Wes Flanagan, great Auburn point guard back in the day. Now, was an assistant to Bruce Pearl, played for Chris Beard at Little Rock, coach for, I should say, Chris Beard at Little Rock, and he's a Little Rock native, and his son Alan, who played at Auburn for 4 years,
transferred right over. He
transfers with him to Ole Miss, so it's going to be interesting to see. He's obviously got a lot of familiarity with the league. Alan does. He's kind of a Swiss Army knife. Maybe not a great player in any one area, but he can help you and beat you in so many ways. So they've got some talent there. That will, again, it's like every game in this league. You can't have a single game
no
in this
nights
league
off
where you can say, you know what, we can kind of relax a little bit tonight and we'll win. Mississippi State with Chris Jans. It's unfortunate that Tolu Smith would have been first team All SEC. He's going to be out until January probably with a foot injury. But look what Vanderbilt did last year. Winning 11 games in the league, and then made a nice run in the NIT, made a nice run in the SEC tournament. So again, these there are, as you said, no nights off, and it's fun to see. It just, again, it makes it exciting to look forward to basketball season and to go into these arenas. Coleman Coliseum, the intensity last year of the Auburn game, for example.
When you get 15,000 in there, people complain about Coleman, but when it's full, it's loud.
Yes, and that's been true going back, my experience, going back to Wimp Sanderson. You put a good product on the floor, the fans know good basketball, and they really do. And they will come, and they will show up, and they will be loud, and they will be crazy. And we know how intense that Auburn game. It got a little heated. I'll give you a little inside story. So I was talking to Auburn athletic director John Cohen, and
Tuscaloosa native,
who he loves Wimp Sanderson. He goes on the show with him all the time. He said, so he was telling me that at the NCAA tournament here in Birmingham at the redone Legacy Arena, and they did a fantastic job with it.
Yes,
that whole area is fantastic. But he said the dressing rooms for Auburn and Alabama, even though they weren't playing each other, they weren't even in the same region, but they were able to play in the first and second round sites together. They were right next to each other, and he said to the NCAA, look, guys, we just played a really intense game a couple of weeks ago in Tuscaloosa. Is it really a good idea for our guys to be passing their guys in the hallway? All it takes is one comment, one guy looking the wrong way at another guy, and next thing you know, we're going to have a brawl. And we're not even playing each other. And he said that's the case where the NCAA, they're a little bit too much by the book. And they said, no, this seed goes to this dressing room, this seed goes to that dressing room. It doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter what the history is, doesn't matter if there's a potential for a tunnel brawl between them. Fortunately, there were no incidents along those lines. And again, that was a highlight of my career, watching both of those teams, first in the first round, win both their first round games, and to see both fan bases show up, and then to see what Alabama did in the second round. They advanced to the Sweet 16, and then Auburn taking that lead against Houston. It looked like they might be able to carry it through. They weren't able to, but that was one of the more memorable days of my basketball writing career.
It was a fun day in the BJCC, and really Alabama fans getting into the arena at the tail end of that game, almost putting their Houston hats on.
Yes.
For that. It was just a great experience to be there. Last thing for us, we've got 19 days until Alabama tips off, till the whole league tips off. Oh gosh, the Gump question. Will we get to a Final Four? I was talking to Coach Wimp Sanderson earlier. He was lamenting as well, and I asked him just how difficult it is because now Coach Oates has been to the tournament twice and been ousted in the Sweet 16 twice, and so just like Coach Sanderson, and they're both on that same kind of, we've got success, we've won some SEC championships. What's it going to take to get over the hump?
You know, it's such a difficult question to answer. You know, coaches spend their entire careers trying to get there and never do. I mean, look at all the games, the 300-plus games that Wimp won. He couldn't get there. It says something about you that you knock on the door constantly.
Absolutely.
You know, and then here comes a program like Florida Atlantic last year. That's Tennessee. I mean, that's who knocked Tennessee out in the Sweet 16 last year. Tennessee fans, you know, they've never been to a Final Four. You know, Bruce Pearl got them to an Elite Eight. Rick Barnes has been a regular in the Sweet 16. They've been the best program over the last 6 years. They've won more games in this league. Of any program in this league, Tennessee's won more games. They have a higher winning percentage. They haven't made that splash in March. And then you compare that to Arkansas. You know, they went to back-to-back Elite Eights, and then last year got to the Sweet 16 before they ran into UConn, which nobody could deal with as they ran all the way to the national title. So it's matchups, it's injuries, it's are you playing your best basketball at that time of year?
So many circumstances.
So yeah, it really is. It's such a roulette wheel because it is a one and done deal. And if all it takes is one night where the other team shoots the lights out, you can't hit the side of the barn, and next thing you know, you're going home, just like Alabama last year. And again, go back to Mark Sears. He said that still sticks with him, obviously, that they losing to San Diego State in the Sweet 16 and just playing very poorly, not playing the way they
last
had
8 minutes
all year. Oh, that was as ugly a stretch of Alabama basketball as we saw all season. And from a team that was as good probably as any team in school history, you know, across the board for 4+ months. But that motivated him. And what really jumped out at me was when he said, this team, he believes, has the capabilities to get to the Final Four. That's not a prediction on his part. That's not arrogance on his part. But he sees these guys in practice every day. He goes against Aaron Estrada every day. In fact, Estrada said his toughest cover is Mark Sears when they go head-to-head in practice every day. So that tells me something, that the talent is there. Now, but you can say the talent's there at Tennessee. You can say the talent might be there at Auburn, Texas A&M. We haven't even mentioned Texas A&M. And Wade Taylor told me a great story. And again, this is what's great about being able to talk to these players. He said he was in class yesterday, and all of a sudden his phone started blowing up. And he didn't know what was going on. And so he said, I got to step out of the classroom. I got to figure out, you know, because sometimes when your phone blows up, it's not necessarily good news. So he goes out in the hallway, and he starts seeing all these texts. And while he's in the hallway, he gets a phone call from his dad congratulating him. And I'm a dad, I'm a sports dad. My kids are, you know, their playing days are probably over. They're in college now, but they had some great memories as kids and as high school players. And so that just, you know, that kind of got me, you know?
Yeah.
How cool that was, that the timing of his dad didn't know exactly where he was. He probably figured he was in class. Probably was going to leave a voicemail. But he caught him as he was in the hallway, finding out for the first time himself that he'd been named preseason player of the year. And that was just a cool moment. It was great. Again, they're great stories like that all across this league and this sport.
Well, I cannot wait for the season to start. 19 days away. Kevin Skarbinski here, writing for SEC Blog, writing for the Birmingham Lead, writing for everywhere that you can find him. Tell everybody where they can find you. You can always hear him 7:30s on Tuesday mornings with our friend Coach Sanderson. But where else can they find you? And thank you for your time.
Oh, well, Joe, this has been fun. And that's one of the highlights of my week every week is talking to Wimp and Barry every Tuesday. You never know what you're going to get from Wimp. You never know what kind of questions he's going to ask. But that's what makes it fun. The best way to do is follow me on Twitter/X at Kevin Skarbinski, because you know, I'll link to all the different things I'm doing. Like this week, I'm writing for the SEC. You can find a blog post on every team. I'm about halfway through the men right now.
Oh,
We'll finish up probably around midnight tonight, and then do it again with the women's teams tomorrow. But you can find that on secsports.com. Again, as you mentioned, the Birmingham Lead, LEDE.com. My newsletter, my weekly newsletter on Thursdays, Scarbo Knows. Find that through AL.com, through the sports section there. So find me in a lot of different places, and just find me.
It's been a great day at SEC Media Days. This is more of the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. Thanks so much for your time.
Man. That was fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you.